I didn't know it was going to blow up the way it did.
You don't really need to buy leads anymore. You got just people coming to you.
For God to do something in my business that would be so impossible for me to take the glory for it.
How do you start? Where do you get the content?
I can't believe like this is happening.
Welcome everyone. This is Mac Agobor, president of FFL Haven. I'm here with Enter the Haven team Huddle, and I have a special guest that, man, if you're watching this, you should record the recording, and when you're done, you can put it on eBay because it will sell for a hot ticket. Guys, if you haven't done research, Googled,
that's hilarious.
I went to Instagram. You see this guy's face, TikTok, YouTube. He's there. If there was a face of education on financial services, this is the guy. And, you know, Providence had it where I had a chance to bump into him and we got to talking, and the things he's done, it's trailblazing. So the opportunity we have to have you here. Thank you so much, Deepo. Appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you for
having me.
I
know your time is valuable, so we're going to just knock straight in. Now, listen, there's a little myth. If you can just either bust it or give us the truth on it. Is it true that you have so much content that you don't really need to buy leads anymore? You got just people coming to you?
That is a fact.
Fact, y'all. So you're going to hear how is this possible? So Deepo, let's start from the beginning. You've been in the industry for a little minute. Tell us your story. How did you get in the industry, what your experience was, and how you got here to FFL? Sure.
So, I got in 2021. September 8th to be precise, and I was introduced to another organization that most people are familiar with. That was all I knew. I thought it was the best thing, some sliced bread, but I didn't do anything for 4 months. So from September to December, I was pretty much just stagnant because I really didn't like the system that they were using. It was based on a network marketing structure, right? And I just really didn't understand how to effectively grow an agency using that model. So I didn't do anything, but I decided to really just start creating content, right? Just to educate people. I didn't know it was going to blow up the way it did. I did my first video December 23rd. I went to sleep. I posted a video on TikTok, went to sleep. The following day, I had 40,000 views. It has never happened before. Now, keep in mind, up until that point, I only had 23 followers on TikTok, right? So it wasn't nothing crazy. But I think people saw the value in the content. And at that point, I just realized that, hey, if I'm going to build this thing, I got to leverage social media. And that was like the foundation of the growth that I'm seeing today when it comes to life insurance. So fast forward, one of my buddies, so just talk about how things work together for your good, right? That video did so well that even people that weren't in insurance started seeing the video. So my current upline in FFL happened to see that video, and we've done business in the past before, and just, hey, Deepo, I know you're doing your thing where you are. Do you mind taking a look at FFL? So I'm like, man, I'm good. This company is great. And he said, well, listen, I can start you off at 100% comp plan. Now, I'm a business guy. I'm not really loyal to any company. I follow the numbers. And he said that I was at 35%, 3,500%. It was nothing to talk about. So that was my introduction to FFL, and I came on board last year officially in March to Family First Life.
That's awesome. So you started FFL, you already had the momentum from social media just going. Did you just continue with that? How did you go? I know everyone has a different, way of going it, or did you, buy leads as well and then slowly transition to where you are now?
So I've only spent $60 on leads with Family First Life. And that was because, I wanted to follow the system.
Right.
That was what everybody was doing. So I said, let me give it a try. Bought $60. I'm like maybe 15 leads. And I started dialing. I just immediately, I knew this wasn't for me. I just couldn't do it, right? Couldn't door knock because I run other businesses. And I just don't like talking to people. I want you to come to me. So I called maybe like 5 out of the 15, and that was it. The rest is still in the CRM, right? And that was it. And since then, I just focused on really just educating people. And it's been that way since.
It's awesome. Now, mind you, I love what Deepo's saying. And we were talking about this, briefly via text. When it comes to leads, it's either hunting to go get people who requested information, or you're planting organic information, educating people with social media. And now we know, hey, we don't have to be farmers. It takes time to plant, cultivate, and harvest, right? Now, when you see an animal, boom, it's done. You cook it, you eat it, it's done deal. So can you kind of talk about that? Like, let's say there are people who they ideally would like to get to the point where they're planters, right? They get their crops from developing content. But right now, how do you make that transition? Do you just go cold turkey? I mean, how would you suggest that work?
You kind of have to balance both, right? So if you're used to dialing leads, you want to stick with that for sure, calling and doing whatever you have to. But at the same time, grow your social media page, right? Meaning that you're consistent. And I think that's the biggest thing, right? You don't post one day, 2 weeks later, you come back. The same way you dial every day, right? And, set appointments, that's the same commitment level that's required for you to actually put out content. So I think you definitely have to balance both. And once you start to see more traction online, then you can start to transition that way.
That's beautiful. And then, Deepo, I know that you got a course that has been beneficial to me, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Now, mind you guys, I met Deepo at a conference of top producers. So it's one thing if you start your little side thing and, social media thing, and, you're making a little bit. This was top people that were doing really, really well. So it's really, really worked well. Now, Deepo, tell us this. How does someone go about it? I mean, you are a neophyte. You know nothing. I mean, I had a love-hate relationship with social media. I didn't like it. Fake people doing fake stuff, posting fake this, fake that. I don't want to be part of none of that. How do you got to change your mindset to kind of get into something where you are able to start actually effectively building a brand?
Yeah, I think that the first thing, Mac, is to really just understand that you have to be yourself, right? I think you get into trouble when you're trying to be something or someone who you're not. And for me, I've always been very laid back. My delivery's always been the same. Who I am on social media is who I am off social media, right? So I just bring my own personality and my own flavor to the whole spiel. A good example, Juan Franco, right? I think you also had a chance to meet him. His flavor and his style is completely different from mine. Communicate, everything is different, but at the same time, he's able to attract people that understands his content,
right?
If that makes sense. So it's really just, pretty much understanding who you are, the type of content or the type of audience you're trying to attract, and then create content that appeals to those types of people.
And Deepo, you have a course that goes through, if you can just maybe dive in just to help give people a little nugget, a little something to nibble on.
Sure.
Okay, they hear you out, man. I know everyone here, they definitely will know social media is it. They just don't know how to tap into it. Step 1, 2, and 3. How do you start? Where do you get the content? Like, how do you go through to do it? If again, you want to do it, but you don't know how.
Yeah. So essentially what I've been able to do is because just like, you, Mac, and other people, a lot of people started reaching out to me to help. And as much as I would like to do like one-on-one assistance, it just becomes very impossible. So what I did was I pretty much put together a 10-course module, which literally outlines everything that I did and everything I'm still doing to generate leads on a daily basis. So we're talking about how do you structure your social media page, right? You have people right now who unfortunately don't know this. They're trying to build a brand, but when you go on their page, nothing about what they're posting is related to what their true intentions are, right? So we go through like the whole nuances and then the psychology of selling life insurance. Most people don't understand that you can't just go out trying to sell on social media.
Yeah.
Because just like you and I, we don't go on social media trying to buy things, right? But we are captivated by certain information that kind of pulls us in to request for more information. So those are all the things that we've been able to put together in the course. How do you use other people's content to generate leads?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you right now, I would say maybe 50 to 60% of the leads that comes into me and my team is strictly by leveraging other people's content.
So you don't have to be original.
You might not, huh?
You don't have to be original.
Huh? Absolutely not. I mean, you look at somebody like Juan Franco, you can go on his page. I mean, his page took off after using my content
Right.
to promote his business. So that's like a very simple example that most people can relate to, but you can use other people's content. You can create your own content, but the key is you have to be consistent in whatever you're doing.
And what does that look like for time? Just, break it down layman's terms. Okay, we're down leads. Realistically, because you need a transition. Most folks aren't and didn't have or don't have the luxury you had, having multiple businesses to sustain them while they generate the organic leads, right? So time-wise, what are we talking about here?
So I think if you could commit like an hour a day, right? It doesn't have to be something crazy, right? An hour, 2 hours a day, whatever you can, right? You start from there, and then you start to really build your content reservoir, for example, right? So I'm talking about maybe you'd spend like 30 minutes searching for content, other people's content, and then you save those. You spend another 30 minutes thinking about creative ways that you can create 30 seconds, 1 minute video to push out information to attract people to yourself, right? So it doesn't have to take long. I think the biggest piece, Mac, is actually creating the content, right? Yep. So you might not be able to do 3 videos per day when you first starting out. It might be just one, right? On one every other day. But once you get into like the field of things, then you become more consistent because now you understand what it takes to deliver the content.
It's beautiful. Now, Deepo, tell us this long-term so we can kind of have our eyes on the prize. What does that look like? Let's say we've been consistent. Someone like you, hey, maybe just helping you, leveraging your content, 6 months, 3 months. What should a typical agent that, doesn't suck, they're following your guidance or they're following a certain structure, what should they expect? Should it be a month, 2 months? And when it comes to leads, how does that work? And maybe a year? And what does that look like for families' help? Just using your example from your team.
I would say about 3 to 6 months, right? 3 to 6 months and really start getting a flow of things. And remember, the biggest piece out of all this has to do with how much content are you putting out there. The more people see your face, the more they're familiar, the more they trust your brand, and the more exposure you get. Right. So that's the biggest thing. So if you're consistent enough and you're posting frequently, then you're generating, you're attracting more followers, and the more followers you have, the more leads you're able to generate.
It's a beautiful thing. And guys, go ahead and throw your comments or questions down in the chat so that we have, again, Deepo here. Trust me, to try to lock this guy down. I had come on. Thank you. So now tell me this, Deepo, what does it look like? And if I can just kind of be the devil's advocate for a second or kind of throw a serious question, when it comes to building a business, obviously you got this pat down. Question is building a business. There's, system driven and people driven, right? The biggest challenge I've seen is when you have someone who they're good at what they do, they can't necessarily duplicate that to the lower ranks and they become just a high paid salesperson and they can't really build a team. How do you get new people started? How do you leverage that so that you can duplicate the system to be simple enough where it can actually work for other people?
Yeah, I think the basics of the whole thing that I teach is that, number one, before you try to do anything on social media, you got to make sure that you understand what you're trying to put out there, right? What we do and content creators is not rocket science. It's not hard. But we know what we're talking about, right? We know how to handle the same way you face objections when you're talking to a client. You might face that in a comment. And guess what? People are actually reading your comments. So they're paying attention to your delivery method, how you respond. Is your response accurate, right? So to me, the foundation is understanding what you're promoting, right? And once you do that, as far as like creating the content, it takes nothing but just turning to your camera and saying a few words and you're posting. Now, you're not going to get it right the first time.
Sure.
You're not going to get it right the fifth time. But the more you do it, the better you get. So for me, I've been creating content since 2016, right? So I got good at what I do because of my consistency over time, right? Now, from a system standpoint, I make my trainings available to my team, my course. I mean, they follow the same process. Those who take it seriously see results, and those who do not, unfortunately, they don't see results.
Makes sense. It's no different than anything else. What does that look like for you, so we can know, I mean, what the system looks like? Someone like Juan Franco, how many families like currently are you helping? What's the biggest number of families you've ever helped in a month?
I'll probably say about 60.
60 families a month just from doing the normal. Biggest
normal, no leads, no buying leads, nothing. And they come to me.
One thing to understand in business, Tony Hsieh, he's the owner of Zappos. Here's what he said in his book. You never want to outsource your core competency, meaning the part that makes you tick. Any business that is good at what they do, hey, they'll leverage it for a minute, but as soon as they can bring that thing in-house, because it stays in their control, that's when they take off, right? You look at Apple, right? People, they dogged on them for a long time because they don't have an open source, but they control their system. And now we know Apple, of course, they're bigger, right? So same concept, guys. You want to be able to control it. Now, you start off with the crutches, right? You got the leads, but the truth is long-term, don't let it distract you, because initially, like Deepo said, the goal is for you to learn the psychology, learn the skills. But once you learn those skills, you would eventually, to become a real business, you want to bring it in-house. And how you bring it in-house, you can do it yourself. Most businesses don't have that opportunity, and that's what we're talking about here. So Deepo, tell us this. Let's go to the client standpoint. Just kind of give us some, take us behind the curtain. What does the conversation sound like, right? So you've done some content. How do you know you got the right lead? Is it literally the same? They say, hey, here's my checkbook. What is the start to finish from getting a lead to a sale?
Right. Of course not, right? Just like anything, some people just inquisitive. It sounds great to them. I talk about index universal life, being your own bank. The concept sounds great, but then when you get to start talking to them financially, they might not even have a job, or they might only have like $50 towards a policy, right? So you look at those scenarios and you say, well, this might not be the best product for you. You might want to get a term or whatever the case is. But I think I saw somebody's question about 100% closing ratio. That's far from the truth, right? Because like I said, you get variety of people, right? People just asking questions, people who just want to get a quote to see what it's like. And then you get the real deals, right? I mean, I've gotten a client where she did a whole life policy. The TP on that was 20 grand. She paid for the whole thing. Did an index universal life, paid for the whole thing. That's another 11 grand. So for one client, about 30 something grand, right? So it really all depends. But here's what I'll tell you. I don't care what kind of work you put into this thing. One person can make all your 30 days worth of work completely worth it, right? So you never really know, but you just got to keep pushing.
Got another question now. Someone's asking, so do you create a separate account as a quote unquote business to start branding yourself, or how do you do it? And he asked also, do you use your personal accounts to create content versus a business account?
So I use my personal account is my business account. So I've always, even before Family First Life, I've always branded myself as the money guy, right? So I'm always talking about something around financial literacy, wealth building. So my brand has always been consistent for years. Now the product or the vehicle might be different, right? But the brand remains the same. So it was easy for me to pivot to talk about life insurance because it's still part of this wealth building process that I talk about. Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I saw a comment about Zoom or just phone. So I would say 60 to 70% of the policies that I write, I don't see the client. I just do everything by phone, right? Wow. Just close on the phone, because once again, the trust factor is already there. They know me. They've seen me so many times. Someone like, yo, oh, this is Depot. So good talking to you. So it almost feel like we're friends at this point. You know what I mean? But then we got some people, they're not too comfortable. Yes, it's Depot. Yes, it's social media, but I still want to see your face. So then we hop on a Zoom and then we do whatever we need to do at that point.
Makes sense. And now tell me this, what's the hardest part, if there was one, about relying on social media, using these leads? Is it any different than traditional leads?
Oh, absolutely. It's different because these are people who are actually reaching out to you that they either want more information or they're ready to go. So it puts less pressure on me personally. And I'm not trying to convince you to get this thing, right? Because you're the one inquiring and you're the one reaching out to me. So my job is more like a customer service to find out if what I have to offer can actually meet your needs. And if it does not, I'm not trying to force the sale. I will let you know, hey, this is not the product for you. Maybe we can consider a term, or maybe wait until you get, your finances becomes a little bit better, then we can come back to this thing.
How do you separate yourself when you start creating good content from the people, the bandwagoners, right? Everyone jump on, you got your train going and everyone's jumping on trying to take the attention because you're the one that they know is getting all the content. Are you literally responding to every reply?
Give me an example.
So, let's say you have someone, you got content and someone's being a negative Nancy, and then someone else comes in who, hey, I do this, by the way. They're asking, hey, how do I get this? And someone else comes in and they still the crumb, right? Do you have to kind of be vigilant?
No, I don't have that kind of time, Mac. Like as a matter of fact, I don't even respond to all the comments on my posts, right? Because most of these people, I might get like 10, 15, 20 comments. And when I go into that particular content, I might respond to all of them, right? After that, I don't have time to come back to start going through it all over again because I'm talking about posting the same content on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. So I'm really trying to respond to everybody. And at some point, it just gets overwhelming. You just got to keep it moving.
Moving on. Someone's asking, how are you booking the appointments? Do you just
very good
calendar link or?
Initially, I started out with my Calendly, right? So people go to my Calendly, but that I didn't have a system at that time. So at that point, my calendar was booked every 15 minutes. And literally, I was drained physically. I could feel like the stress. And I'm not doing this, right? So I learned from Juan. He actually created a landing page for his, system. So I pretty much did the same thing, created a landing page. So now all my leads funnel through my landing page. So now I can now take those leads, share it out to my team and all that kind of good stuff.
Oh, that's beautiful. If correct me if I'm wrong, Depot, it sounds like, okay, a lead is a lead, right? They're interested in your content, but these are the same people that are filling out forms looking for different things. Or you tell me, do you find a different, obviously they know you, so the trust factor is a little bit there, or is it a different caliber, or are these really the same kind of people that are looking for help in a non-traditional way?
This is different caliber of people. These are what I call quality and qualified leads, right? Because they know exactly what they want. They just want to know, can it fit their budget? Can they afford it? And just a few questions around that, right? But in most cases, I would say the biggest challenge is getting them on the phone, right? But if you're able to get them on the phone, your closing ratio is pretty much high at that point, right? But for me, once I call you, how
hard is it to get them on the phone? Is it the same concept? Just you text them, triple dial, you're using the same methods?
I call you once, you don't respond, I'll leave a voicemail, send you a text message. The following day, if I remember, I call you again. If you don't respond, then I'm done. I don't, and I'm just, because sincerely, I have enough leads. I just don't have enough time to be like triple dialing and all these text messages. I just can't.
You just move forward. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But
then the good thing is that,
now
say because the good thing is that now I got a couple of my team members who understand like in the Index Universal Life. So I'm able to now like channel a lot of those leads to them and let them triple dial whatever they want to do with them.
And here's a question: when you're going and build content, I mean, the IUL, is that primarily the people that you're looking for to create a little buzz, or is it possible to create something similar doing content on final expense? Where should people be looking if they're looking to create content to create the most buzz?
You can create content on anything and create a buzz, right? I just chose Index Universal Life because coming from my other company, that was all they talked about. So it was already locked in here. Now, when I came to FFL, I realized it was final expense. So if you're a final expense person, just focus on creating appealing content that'll attract people who need that type of product, right? So if I was to pivot and start creating content around final expense, I'll get the same result.
Got it.
Right? You just got to know your stuff and just go hard at creating the content to educate people.
It's a beautiful thing. Where do you see as far as growth? Is it something that's scalable where, you know, because you're building it this way? Like, for example, here, when someone's buying leads, we know the difference between a top producer and someone that's not is how much leads they're buying, because you got multiple.
Sure.
How do you scale that when it comes to you, if you get to the point where you're generating your own?
So the thing is this, because my content is out there, I might not produce, like, for example, this week, I've been posting content with my kids, but I haven't posted anything really insurance related, but I'm still getting leads from old content. Right. Because the information is out there. So at any point in time, I might get 2 to 3 leads per day, even if it's not through my landing page. People shoot me a text message, send me an email, something. So I think for me, it's definitely sustainable and scalable. I have to pause the amount of content I'm creating now just because me and my team can't handle the number of leads that we're getting.
Wow.
Right. So, yeah, I think it's definitely scalable, but you got to put in the time to make it, to scale it.
I guess you may be like, I remember Nina. When she scaled her social media approach, she never had a recruiter. She was doing something similar, but on the recruiting side, it was an hour a day. And she scaled it by how many people on her team were putting in an hour a day to be able to post content about recruiting and such. And the more people, she saw it blow up, and the rest was
absolutely.
Let me ask you this, Deepo. So concern that some have had, of course, because you're going to be using your personal page as your branding page, does that mean you got to kind of back up on the things you post? You can't be posting all the controversial stuff because everyone's looking at you now. Like, how do you handle that? I mean, do you have to change yourself not to be as open as you are? Or do you just post about anything you want, anything that comes to your mind?
When you're building a brand, you definitely got to be intentional, right, on what you're doing. For me personally, I've always, when it comes to social media, I've always try to stick to like focusing on building my brand. It doesn't mean I won't post about my family, having fun and all that kind of good stuff, but those are more like drops here and there, right?
Right.
I stay away from anything that's controversial. You know what I mean? I don't want you coming on my page talking about how they rigged the election and all that stuff. That's none of my business, man. Right. So I stick to what I know and what I do best. And like I said, here and there, I drop things that makes me feel and look more personable than versus business all the time.
I love it. Is it similar to Gary Vee's approach? Jab, jab, hook,
Bingo. That's it. Okay. So let me talk a little bit about that.
And some people don't know what that is. If you can maybe explain a little bit.
Yeah. So if you do intend to start building your brand and go the social media route, don't post about life insurance every single day, because at some point people want to get tired of it, right? The whole idea is to make you feel more personable. People can relate to you. And that's what's like the whole jab comes into play. You talk about this, you talk about that, you talk about this, and then the hook comes into play where you drop information about life insurance. Then you go back to the jab, right? So it's just to kind of balance it out. I see some people, every single post is about life insurance. At some point, people get tired of that. Like, they don't want to keep seeing life insurance because they already got a policy. So what's next?
Right. It's good. It's good. Deepo, I got one last question for you. As far as the conference, we got a conference coming up. I know you've been to many conferences in your history. I know we're probably preaching to the choir, but how important is that to a new agent getting there, in your opinion?
Oh, I mean, being at a conference for me, so this is my first for Family First Life, but for me, because I used to be heavy in network marketing, and every conference that I went to just kind of gave me a bigger picture of what the whole company was about, the vision, and really put me into a place where I can see myself doing great things with the particular company I was with, right? Right now, I really don't need to go to Family First Life conference, right? Because I mean, I just want to make money. I'm not really interested in the whole motivation to talk, but I know I need it just to kind of get the full picture of what's possible. I needed to see other people who are producing to motivate me to say, hey, if this guy's doing 1 million, why can't I do 1 million? Right? You got to be around those types of people. Right. And if everybody you surrounding yourself with is talking about how they're struggling with leads and how times is tough, you're not going to go far in this business. Right. You want to be around top producers. Like when I went to the conference where we met, I can't remember the guy's name, but he had like the NFL ring. You know what I'm saying? I'm assuming that's the what's that ring?
The Hall of Fame ring.
Hall of Fame ring. So I didn't know at that time, but I kept looking. I'm like, man, he must be somebody important. I didn't know what the ring was about. I later got to find out he was, a Hall of Famer. And I was like, at that point, I was like, man, I want that ring. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just being around people who were making way more money than I was. And I was like, man, I gotta do whatever it takes to get that ring, because it just looks good on the finger. Right? I got a wedding ring, but I want a Hall of Famer ring. You know what I mean? So I think that's what conferences do for you, Mac. Being around positive people are just hungry, and you can't go to a conference and come back the same. It's not possible.
It isn't. No, I know I said last question, but second to last question. I always love to give people plan of attack and action. So if someone heard this, they said, hey, I know I need to start planting versus just hunting. Just to keep it simple, they only remember one thing as far as the next call to action. They wanted to do something, but we know a confused mind does nothing. What would be that one next step to get something going, to start branding themselves and building a social media presence, start getting some of those leads?
Take out your phone and shoot a 30 seconds to a 1 minute video and just post it about whatever you decide to focus on. So if you're doing Index Universal Life, if you're doing final expense, bring out your phone and just shoot a video and share with people what you already know, right? Don't worry about how you look. Don't worry about the quality of your phone. Don't worry about the background, all that, excuse, right? Just execute. The very first video, I remember 2016 when I started creating content, one of my mentors at that time, I asked him like, yo, I said, how do you always make money regardless of the company you in? And he said, Deepa, I just create content. That one comment that's what changed my whole business, right? And at that time, I was using like an iPhone 5. Pixel was bad. Everything was horrible. But because he said he created content, you know what I did? I brought out my phone and I just started. I still got the first video. I laugh now when I see it because it was so horrible. But you know what? I still took action. I executed, right? So if you're on here, you're thinking to yourself, well, I can't do this because, I'm too short, or I'm too fat, or I can't communicate well. My English is bad. Those are all excuses, right? If you want to excel in this business, you got to execute, right? So when you have an execution mindset, the rest is history.
And I love it. Thank you, Deepo. And someone asked, the first question was just so that they can follow you. What are your usernames on the socials so that they can check your content out?
Sure. Let me just type it out. So there's a lot of fake Deepos out there. Unfortunately,
I was going to ask you about that too, but we'll do that offline. I didn't know which one was you.
So Deepo _ I've seen it. That's me for sure.
At all the socials?
All the socials. Okay. Everything.
Okay.
So yeah, just kind of see what I'm doing. Like I said, there's nothing special about me, man. I'm being very sincere. I'm just an ordinary guy who learned to do something consistently enough to produce results. Right. If you can be consistent, I promise you. I always tell people, if you go and look at Juan Franco, I don't know if you know who he is. Mac, these guys are producing ridiculous numbers every month. I think last month they did like 600,000 and some change.
Right.
Just 28 people, right? Ridiculous numbers. And he's not doing nothing special. He's not. He's
Nothing.
58 to 60 years old. And if somebody like him can do it, not in a bad way, you don't have any excuse.
Here's what he does.
You don't. That's all he does.
He just points.
He just points. And do you know the first video he started with? He started with my video that went viral, and that just took off. And it was similar to me, right? At that point, he knew that the route to go was social media, and he hasn't bought one lead since then. So
Wow.
it tells you that it works.
Works. And I can attest to that, guys. As soon as Depot, I met him, I said, you know what? I'm going to do what he says. I started doing some of the content and people start coming out the woodwork. Friends that I did, hey, I didn't know you were there. Hey, can you help me with this?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm helping the family right now. It's going to be sizable. Let's just say that much. And they would never would have known had I not done that. And Depot, I know I'm like a Southern preacher, 3 closes, right? Listen, the thing that impressed me most about you was what you said about how that prayer you prayed, that you said that you wanted someone to touch your business so that when your business blew up, people would know it was him. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah.
Because that was what I knew, that this was the guy that I wanted to kind of get around, because whatever he was doing, it was blowing up, not because of him, but because something was touching it.
Yeah. Well, it's not something, it's someone, right?
Yes,
so I said, before my business took off, I used to, and I still pray that prayer today. And the prayer is very simple, that for God to do something in my business that would be so impossible for me to take the glory for it, right? Because sometimes you can achieve a little success and be like, yo, I did it, right? Because I was dialing all day and that's why I got the results. But when you achieve certain level of results and you ask yourself like, yo, how, like, I can't believe like this is happening. And if you were to ask me this time last year where I will be today, I couldn't tell you that I would be here because nobody knew who I was at Family First Life. When I started a month in, my first month, I did 17,000. Yeah, he did a little something. Nobody knew who I was. But that prayer just kept working wonders for me, and it's still working wonders, you know, and that's why I always remain humble, because I know it's not because I'm smart or intelligent, because I'm not that smart, literally, right? I failed throughout elementary school, high school, barely made it out of college. So I know that I'm not that intelligent, right? So yeah, that's the simple prayer. And I think that prayer is working magic for me.
It's working. Well, hey, again, thank you guys. Thank you, Depot, for getting on. I appreciate you sharing your heart with us. And hey, and that course that you have, that
let me post
out,
a link just so that if
link.
anybody, let me see, digital, what is it? Digital.
I think it's digital agent. I can't remember, but it's
digital
guys,
life agent.
While he does that, this course was one I did and it was worthwhile. This is stuff that you would pay people thousands for, and hey, this is no plug. I mean, Depot is doing well enough where he don't have to, trust me, it's worthwhile to do.
Right.
It's worthwhile. So if you took it, if you needed someone to hold your hand, this would be where you would go. And I've been following it and it works. Some of you see my content. It's not because I'm brilliant. I literally just follow what he told me to do, and the rest is history. So appreciate you guys.
And if anybody who gets the course or whatever, you can definitely, like, you got my number, let Mac know, get my number, and I'm here to help you, man. So like I said, to me, the course is not about making money, because I'm good, believe me, right? But if you take the course, it shows me that you're serious, and I'm willing to work with you to do whatever I can to help you get to where you need to be, as far as social media and building your brand is concerned.
Awesome, guys. Next week, we're not going to have, obviously, a team huddle because we're going to be at conference.
Yeah.
So look forward to seeing everyone there in person. Until then, guys, we'll see you. Take care. Take charge. We'll see you at the top. Thank you, Depot.
I appreciate you, man. Have a good one.